Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. So I had made a post previously on the top things I would configure on a firewall if I was configuring one. In today's video, I'll be configuring an actual firewall and I'm going to be taking you most of those things I had identified as the top things I would, configure. The firewall I'll be using today is it's really heavy. That's a FortiGate 600C. I hope you can see it clearly. It's a FortiGate 600C firewall. So if you take a look at this firewall, you would be able to see the ports that are on the device. So you have a USB management, you have a console, then you have two management ports. So management 1 and 2. Then you have two WAN ports as well. And then you have about 18 ports. Yeah, you have 18 ports. So then over here are some, shared ports that you have also some SFP ports available for, fiber connection. At the back, we have the power. We have two power slots for redundant power supply. So we have one here and one here. I bought this firewall on eBay. It was ridiculously cheap and I was shocked the way it was delivered. It was delivered like a brand new device. The seller even delivered the two power supply units. I've not put the other one, it's still in the box, but this one we're going to make do with this one we have today. So to connect onto a FortiGate device, to gain access into the user interface of a FortiGate device, typically you would connect with your Ethernet cable onto the management port, which usually has DHCP setup. It would give your device, your computer, a DHCP IP address, which you would use to access the user interface of this device. If some settings have been changed and that's not the case, you can go in with your console cable into the device, set up an IP address on one of the ports, configure it as a DHCP port, and then connect to that port with your Ethernet cable, and you'll be able to access the UI. In this case, the settings are okay. We're just going to go straight into the user interface by connecting to one of the ports. Let's get straight into configuring this device. Okay, here we are. So basically I have connected to the FortiGate device. I connected on the management port, the first management port, and I connected to my laptop. And to ensure that you've gotten an IP address, you need to use your command line to check if you've gotten an IP address from the DHCP server, which is on the FortiGate management port 1. So I'll do IP config and go to my Ethernet and check. So as you can see, this is the IP address I'm getting, and this is my default gateway, which is the IP address configured on the management port 1. So this is my current IP address, and this is my, so I'll just take this. Sorry, this is so difficult to copy, and then copy it onto here and click on enter. It might not open if you copy it this way. Sometimes it does open, sometimes you need to add HTTP or HTTPS before the IP address. Then go to advanced and proceed. So this is the FortiGate user interface. To ensure that your Ethernet card is, configured to use DHCP, just go to your Ethernet, go to your settings on your Windows machine, or if you're using a Linux, you know how to navigate to this point, and then type in Ethernet settings, change adapter options, and you go to Ethernet. So this is my Ethernet. You go to properties and you go to IPv4 properties. Okay, see, obtain an IP address automatically. So this is DHCP. If I was to configure it myself, I could say use the following IP address. Now type in the IP address, subnet mask, and default gateway myself. All right, so let's continue with the video. Now that we are here, usually the password would be admin without the username will be admin without a password. So that's currently the case here. I'll just say go ahead. And this is what the user interface looks like when you log in. This is how the first dashboard you will see looks like. So we're going to be just taking a look at a few things here. Firstly, let's go to network and see the interface we're currently on. So on the network side, this is the interface we're currently on. We're on the management port 1. This is the IP address. As you can see, this IP address here is the same thing that is on the address bar. This is how we are accessing the FortiGate. And you can see what access we are using here. We're using HTTPS. We're using HTTPS. So there are quite a few ways you can access the FortiGate from the settings here. You see that I can ping this interface. I can, HTTPS, HTTP, and FMG access. I've never used this one before, but yeah. So basically, that's it. So first things first, on your firewall appliance, you can see the main settings on the left. You can see your dashboard. You can see your FortiView. You can see your network, system, policy and objects, security profiles, VPN, user and device, Wi-Fi and switch controller, log and report, and monitor. So these are the basic things that you have, the basic settings that you'd have, which also have, other settings under them. So you can access those settings as well. So we're going to configure network first, which is interfaces. So if just as we're already in interfaces tab, if we navigate to interfaces, this is what we see. So we have all the interfaces that are on the FortiGate that we saw earlier. These are all the interfaces. We have the management 1, 2. We have the other ports. We have the one ports 1, 1 and 1, 2. We have all of that. So these are all the interfaces we have. So typically when you are configuring your firewall, you're going to want to configure an interface which would be internet facing. There are basically 3 types of interfaces. You have a public interface, you have um, a private interface, and you have also a DMZ. So these are zones, basically. These are your major network zones. So you would have your LAN zone, which is inside facing, which is your uh, private, and then you have your public, which is the one, and then you have a DMZ, which is services that you're hosting within your network, which could be web servers, database servers, and all of that. So basically, if you scroll down, you see we have a WAN interface here. So if you have a WAN connection from your internet service provider and you want to connect it, you identify the interface on the FortiGate device, the physical device itself. Then you navigate into that interface from network and interfaces. It's going to take a while to open. Once it has opened and you're in the interface, you're going to come in here. This is the MAC address of this interface, and this is the name that has been assigned to this interface by the producer, which is Fortinet. You can give it an alias, which you use to identify it, in your environment. So let us say, let's say you have a connection from a service provider called uh, Internet Owners. So let's say the name of the service provider is Internet Owners, and this service is coming from a radio connection. Let's say radio, right? So you have their service coming in from radio. So let's put a dash here just to make it very visible to the eye. So this is the name of the service provider, and this is how I typically name it sometimes. So this is how the service comes in, radio. So link status is currently down because there's nothing connected to it. Type of interface is a physical interface. The role is how you're going to select, what role you are assigning to this particular interface. So in this case, we are assigning it as a one, which is a public facing port. So that's it. You can do all these settings if you want. Estimated bandwidth, which would show what bandwidth you're expecting from this interface, you understand, from your service provider. So there are so many other things you can configure here. Addressing mode. So how do you want to get an address for this interface? Do you want to configure it manually? This you will do if your service provider has given you a an IP address for this interface. So you configure it here if it's manually. Most of the time, this would be the scenario. But if you're in an environment where they've told you just to plug it in and use DHCP, you use DHCP, then you'll be able to get an IP address once you connect the cable which has been provided, the uplink cable which has been provided by your service provider. You see the status, it would get an IP address and it will populate right here. All right. So how do you want to access? Do you want to access this interface? That's what this part is about. So you can have administrative access. That means I want to be able to log in over HTTPS on this interface. So you can check whichever one you want. You want to be able to ping this interface. You want to do radius accounting, CAPWAP, all of this. You want to be able to SSH into this interface. So all of that. Then you can comment just to be more specific about what this interface is about, and then you can click OK to save the interface. Now, once you've saved the interface, it's going to appear here, and you're going to see it, Internet Owners Radio. That's the name of the interface. The IP address, if an IP address has been received, it would appear here. So if a DHCP IP address has been received, it would appear here. If not, nothing appears here. But if you have a manual one as well, it would appear here. And then how many times has this configuration been referenced within your device? It says 2 times. You can track how many times and view where the configuration has been referenced. That's one thing I like about FortiGate devices. You can see where a particular thing has been used twice. So that's that for interfaces and zones. This is different on other devices like Sonic Wall and Juniper Firewall. You would first configure the interface, then assign it to a zone. So it's different in different devices. So typically you want to configure a static route as well that is leading to your internet. So you would say anything that is going to an unknown network 0.0.0.0/0, send it to this IP address. And this IP address is the IP address of your gateway, which is obviously your internet. So let's say if this is the IP address that has been given to us by our internet service provider. So let's see how to create a new one. If you want to configure a static route, you click on create new, click on the destination of the static route, and then the gateway port is what you select here. The gateway port. Let's say we want anything going to 0.0.0 to be sent to, let's say, our 1.2. So 1.2 would populate here, and the IP address of the 1.2, if we have assigned an IP address to it, will populate here. Then we can assign an administrative distance, which is the believability of the route. So the lesser the administrative distance, the more times this static route will be used. So if I have an administrative distance for a route that is 10, and I have another administrative distance for a route which is 1, each time traffic comes in that is supposed to go to this location, the one with administrative distance of 1 will be selected, because the lesser the better. Then status enabled, you can put a comment here, and then you click OK to save the static route. That's that for interfaces and static routes. You might need to configure your DNS as well. So you might have your primary DNS and your secondary DNS. You can configure all of that here by just clicking in here and then configuring the various DNS servers. So you can specify and modify this and apply it. So that's that for DNS. Okay, next thing we are going to look at is I think security profiles, right? So security profiles are measures you use to secure your environment. So basically you'd have things like antivirus, web filter, DNS filter, application control, protection, intrusion prevention, intrusion detection. So these are licensed features. I might not be able to, you can configure them, but they won't work because there's no license on this device, and you know how expensive licenses are to get. So, but what buying these devices helps you to do is it helps you to understand how to configure, devices, so that when you're in a live environment, when you're in an interview, when you speak, they can believe that you know how to, you've actually worked with this device and you've actually, interacted with such devices before. Next thing you might want to do is to configure your antivirus. So the protocols that you want to inspect, those are the things that are listed here. So you can inspect HTTP, SMTP, POP3, IMAP, MAPI, FTP. Can inspect all of this, and you can tell it, what to do to, all of these protocols. So this is a default one, and you can add a new one by also giving it a name here. You put a specific comment, so that which is understandable in your environment, and you can either block it or monitor it. So monitor will log and keep an eye on this specific traffic, you understand, and while block can block all those traffic. So you can, when you finish the setup, you click OK. Next one is web filter. So this is what the web filter looks like. So it's saying one in this device is not licensed for the FortiGuard web filter service. Traffic may be blocked if this option is enabled. So that's what I was telling you earlier. You can't use these features because you don't have a license. And if you don't have a license, it's going to block if you enable this feature within a you know within a policy object. If you enable it within a policy object, it's going to block that traffic. So web filter will typically help you block unwanted traffic, right? So what you typically do regarding web filters is you're going to create the type of web filter you want. Um, let's say you want to give it a name that makes sense in your environment. So web filter 1, let's just say web filter 1, and then you give it comments, maybe what you're trying to block. Maybe you're trying to block adult content, maybe you're trying to maximize bandwidth, maybe you're trying to block you know weapon and child trafficking content that that are not for children. If you want to block all those things, so these are the various tags that you can see here. You can see all those that are allowed. You can see those that you have set to monitor, you've seen warning, and those that you have to authenticate to use them. So you can all click on those, the ones that you want to enable them. Then you can as well create a new category for your web filtering. So all of that, you can see all the items here. You can select which ones that you want depending on the category that you want to create. Start creating all of that. So you can restrict access for anything you want to restrict here. So depending on what type of web filter you're trying to create. So you see restrict YouTube access, log or search keywords, all of that. You can do all of that and click OK. So this would basically filter the traffic that you have selected or the category that you have created. The next one is DNS filter. It does a similar thing for filtering content as well, and you set it up in the same way. Yeah. And application control, let me show you intrusion protection. So basically there's an IPS sensor on your device as well that can identify intrusion based on traffic that it is, based on traffic analysis. So if it analyzes traffic that is coming into your environment and feels that this is similar to intrusion, or the signature of this traffic is consistent with what we see in intrusion, then it's going to block all those types of traffic. So IPS signatures, you can add IPS signatures as well. So depending on, you know, the sources that you have, so you can choose as many as you want to. You can choose as many as you want. So these features are licensed. They are updated over time. That's why they are licensed features, because they are updated and they are managed by Fortinet. So when there are new updates, they send it to your device. So these features are licensed. So it's better for you to have a license, so that when there are when there are updates about, you know, intrusion, new signatures, and all of that, they can be sent to your device, so that your device will be able to identify what is consistent with intrusion. All right. So the next thing we are going to be looking at is policy and objects. So this is basically how you configure access from your device or from your network to another network. So when I say network, it could be from one LAN in your environment to another LAN. So this one right here is a policy that says LAN to WAN, right? So this is a LAN to WAN policy. So what does it mean? From my local area network to my WAN. This is what enables internet access. Actually, after you've configured your static route and all of that, this is what you have to configure to have your traffic go out to your environment. So this is what we call, this is more like an access list. So it's going to have an implicit deny at the bottom of the access list. So if this somehow, if this particular if this implicit deny somehow finds its way at the top of, you know, at the top of this list, that means every traffic will be denied. I won't be able to access anything. That is why it is at the bottom. The implicit deny is always at the bottom. So if a traffic comes from your LAN or from the internet into your environment, your FortiGate device is going to go through this list and find which traffic matches, which entry on this list matches that traffic. If no entry matches that traffic, it's going to be an implicit deny. It's going to drop that packet. If an entry matches it, it's going to execute using that entry. For instance, we have a LAN to WAN entry. If I open this LAN to WAN entry now, the name is LAN to WAN, incoming interface port 1, which is my LAN. So it's saying that whatever traffic is coming in from port 1, which is identified as LAN on this device, and it's saying, and it's going to outgoing interface, which is 1 1. So it's going out on this interface. So what source, all, destination address, whatever destination is going to schedule always. So I can schedule when this traffic will be going through. Service, whatever service, IMAP, POP3, DNS, SSH, whatever service is going out here should be enabled, should be then the action is accept. So it's going to permit whatever action that suits into all these criteria. Next is going to NAT this traffic, because this traffic is going out to the internet. The next one is IP pool configuration. Uh, that's going interface. Now, these are your security profiles. Security profiles are the things that we've seen here. So this antivirus, if we click this, it's going to let us select one that we've already configured here. So it's asking us what antivirus policy or profile do you want us to implement on the traffic that is going out. You understand? Next one is web filter. It's going to say, what web filter do you want us to implement on this traffic that is going out at this point in time? Next one is DNS application control, IPS. You're going to enable all of this and select which one you've configured, which one it is that, you know, matters to that traffic that is currently going out. And you're going to do this for all the list. So this list grows over time. The more your network expands, the more you have more LAN, the more you have more WAN connections, the more you have more LAN connections. This list will grow over time because you're going to be having more IPv4 policies. So that is it. All right. Next one is VPN. So Next one is VPN. VPN is basically if you have services, for instance, you have a corporate office and you have a remote office. So you have services that you want those in your remote office to be able to access. These services are resident in your corporate office and you want those in the branch office to be able to access them. This is how you can enable that to happen. So what you need to make that to happen is what we call IPsec tunnels, right? IPsec tunnels. So you have to create one of these. I can't create this at the moment because I don't have a remote device. So what you have to understand is you're going to be needing two devices that have that are able to do IPsec VPN. So right, as you can see, it's side to side FortiGate. So if you have two devices that are the same, you can do this. If you have a FortiGate and even a Sophos, you can still do this because both of them have IPsec capability. So you can still do this once you get the settings correct. So this is more detailed and more in depth. I might not be giving you the full information about this because just because I don't have a remote device. So basically, we're going to have a site to site connection and it's asking us what is the remote device type. The remote device type is FortiGate and then no NAT between sites. We're typically going to NAT the configure NAT the traffic that is going out. So we're going to have a NAT setting. So we're going to say, let's say main office to branch, branch to branch, right? Okay, 15 characters. Main, let's say main to branch. Next. So remote device IP address. So you're going to have the public IP address of the remote device. So the device over here, this is the public IP address. That's the IP address is using to access the internet. And then you have the outgoing interface, which would typically be your one port. Let's see. So your one port, whichever one it is you're going out with. Next one is authentication method, pre-shared key and signature. If you're using a pre-shared key, you're going to type in the pre-shared key, which is typically a password. Just ensure the password is long enough, or you upload a certificate, which is you upload a signature. So once you've done all of that, pre-shared key, obviously, let's say QWERTY, this should not be your pre-shared key. It should be long and complicated. Outgoing interface, let's say it's 1, 2, then IP address of the remote device 192.168.10.1. It's not gonna, okay. Then next, then local interface. So what interface is being used here locally? That is your one interface, right? Local subnets, these are the subnets that you want to you want to be accessed on your side of the network, so the corporate office. So you can add as many subnets as possible. So as you can see it here, you can use a comma separated list of network addresses and their net mask to define, yeah. So just in that manner, you can be able to add different one. And then remote subnets. What subnets do I want to access? Because you might not want to access everything. You may just want to access a database. You might just want to access a website or a ticketing system that is on this side. So that when you've created this, you just create it and that happens. You create it on the remote side as well. They will negotiate a connection, and once the connection is enabled, you can be able to ping services on each side of the network that you've listed as local subnets. Next, and which is the final thing I'll be showing you today, is users and groups. So users are basically who has access to my firewall, and user groups. So you have user definition. You can create a user. Yeah. So a local user, login credentials, and all of that. You can create remote radius user. A remote radius user can, if you've created an SSL VPN, a remote access VPN, and you want users to be able to log in, you can do all of that. And you know, create that here. I won't go fully into that. The next one is user groups. You can define what kind of users who you want to access your FortiGate device, your management, FortiGate management itself. That's to manage the device. So you can create user group and member types. So you have, these are the types that have been created by Fortinet. So you have the firewall group, you have the Fortinet single sign-on group, you have a guest user, you have a radius sign-on, and then you have all of that. So these are people that can either manage or go through your firewall to access a service that they want to access. So that is basically it. So yes, I think that's everything I want to go through for now as the basics. Next thing is okay, just one more thing. You can configure um, dashboards. Yeah, I know you can configure dashboards. I can't remember how it's done. I can't be sure how it's done on this one, but I know you are able to, you know, manage dashboards. I can't find the icon I'm looking for, but it's fine. So that's basically it. Yeah, you can, as you can see, you can manage the dashboard um, items. Yeah, I know there's a way to create a completely new dashboard by, adding additional things to your dashboard, but it's okay for now. For now. Next, you can add administrators as well. You can configure high availability. That's when you want your FortiGate to be highly available. So you have two FortiGates in the same location. In case one dies or one breaks down, the other one quickly becomes available and becomes the next firewall. Usually configured in maybe an active or active and active passive manner. So you can configure it to be active and one should be passive, and the other one, yeah, you can configure it to be active, and when one goes down, the other one quickly takes over to become the next one. You just have to configure the group name and password, and then select the port on which they'll use to connect for high availability. All right, thank you so much for watching. If you need more videos about how to configure firewalls, how to do one thing or the other on a firewall, just let me know. You can put it in the chat and I'll definitely make a video on that one. Thank you so much for watching and do enjoy the rest of your day. Do like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you find this video helpful. Thank you.